All right, Cash, you got the mic. The floor is yours.
All right, guys, I'm warning everyone here. I am a libtard. I think I'm one of the only ones in the room.
Oh my gosh, somebody gonna argue with me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Pisco, for inviting
He
me
needs a
here.
break.
Of course. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Grab the mic and hold it up so we can hear you.
So I'm an American exceptionalist. I love this country. I love this Constitution. I think Pisco brought up this point. I can read out like the amendment that says that people have the rights to due process, regardless if you are a illegal or a citizen. I think that just needs to be cleared up first. That Pisco is the pro-Constitution person here. Every single person, I heard them screaming in the room saying, illegal immigrants don't get due process. That is against the Constitution, just to clarify that first. Second of all, I also think it's important to acknowledge that I trust the U.S. government more so with processing someone that we'd all agree is probably a bad guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, than some random, prison in El Salvador. I think we have a good justice system, as many of you guys might disagree. It's crazy to me that you guys disagree with the 6 Republican Supreme Court justices that said that we need to facilitate his return. Rule of law is very important in this country. And I don't know what you guys would be saying. I think Pisco hinted at this. If AOC becomes president and all of a sudden says that the January 6ers are a bigger threat to this country than the illegal immigrants, then deports them with no due process, you guys will all be crying your asses
100%
out.
true. Base.
All right.
Grab the seat, brother. Let me just respond to that. That already happened.
Bullshit. All those people got trials. Everyone in the Jan 6. And then
They all got due process. All of them got due process.
And then these criminal terrorist insurrectionist thugs got let out by the criminal in the Oval Office right now, illegally occupying the office.
I would just like to ask a procedural question to our lawyer friends here. If evidence is denied to the accused parties, is that due process?
Yeah, it wasn't denied. It would be a violation of due process, but it wasn't actually denied.
That's not what I asked.
It wasn't actually denied.
That's not what I asked.
Whether the evidence is admissible, right?
It would depend if it's admissible. It's also it's a whole doctrine on Brady that would apply, and so I would need to know the specific facts. And also, I'm not an expert on Brady.
So,
I'm not a criminal lawyer.
what did we have? 44,000 hours of footage not.
This was a lie, and this was denied on the merits in the courts. So no.
That's not enough.
No. Go for it, Will.
Okay, the actual real, the best argument about the failure of due process in the J6 cases was the fact that change of venue motions got denied. Yeah. There's no excuse that any of these trials happened in D.C.
where the crime was committed
in a 97% Democratic district.
Who the fuck cares? You committed the crime in a place. You do the time there. You do the
trial
there.
Whoa! I thought you cared about fair trials.
Wait.
Whoa! When did that happen?
Whoa!
It's a white guy. You don't want a fair trial anymore, do you?
So doesn't the Constitution specify? Doesn't the Constitution specify that there is a venue provision that when you commit a crime, it shall be tried in the district in which it was committed?
Yeah, but that venue is not defeated by due process and the right to a fair trial.
So there's a presumption that a jury is able to put aside their bias, their political bias.
Yeah, but that presumption's not absolute. What happens if a black defendant is facing a jury of all white and the prosecutor's excluding?
It's a high burden to get rid of that jury.
I don't know. I mean, think about this.
Whoa! I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying it's a high burden to show that it's racially, unconstitutional.
I mean, you see, if you look at the polling, I want to make this point because this is, I think, the key issue, which I think liberals elide all the time. You look at the polling on, for example, whether liberal parents would be happy if their child came home with a conservative partner to marry. They're not, and in fact, in general, this number is higher than in a world where than cross-racial. So I mean, I'm sorry, the way that there's polarization in this country between Republicans and Democrats, which is literally demonstrated by this room, and also a lot of the things, intemperate things you said about the people in this room, is demonstrating that there's not a jury of your peers, and the J6ers didn't get fair trials.
Let me ask you another question. Is it due process if the prosecution uses information from after the trial happened to seek a greater sentence on the individual based on speech of the individual?
No, why would it be?
Not necessarily.
That is not.
It gets to whether or not you have regret, whether or not you. There are factors of sentencing that you're able to, that the judge has discretion to weigh.
Your speech.
That aren't. Yes, your speech. So, for example, I'll give you a case like Martin Shkreli. You guys know Martin Shkreli?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
So Shkreli, and this is actually, I think Shkreli can be funny sometimes, but he talked shit about Hillary Clinton when he had his trial or something, and then the judge sentenced him more. Now you might disagree with that, but it just is the case that judges are allowed a great deal of discretion at sentencing, and that's our system.
Okay, Okay, can I introduce kind of a new topic a little bit? Because I feel like we're going to bog down the
Yeah, you got less than a minute, though.
Well,
Go
okay,
ahead.
so let's
perfect.
give him time.
We haven't had a liberal yet the
I know.
entire night.
That's what I'm saying. We'll talk.
some
Hey,
liberal
Cash,
shit.
say
I'm ready,
something,
Alex, I'm
man.
ready. I'm sorry.
Gosh,
Keep 'em around.
like a bump on
I
the
think
log.
that Pisco hinted at, and I was kind of talking about this in my opening speech, is that what's important to recognize here is that it sets a precedent. These laws set a bad precedent. I think we should also talk about Mahmoud Khalil. I go to Georgetown. There was a guy that was in our grad department that got deported for supporting Palestine, literally just for supporting Palestine. I just want to hear the conservatives here that if AOC gets elected and designates Israel as a terrorist state and starts supporting a bunch of pro-Israel people, I'm Jewish, I'm pro-Israel, I'd be afraid of that. You conservatives have opened the floodgates
100%.
for free speech to be completely violated.
Wait.
Because Trump is breaking these
I
laws.
will
it
answer
takes
this.
It takes two to tango with
And
these
let
laws. It's
Will
incredibly
answer
important.
I will answer your point. If you manage to get AOC to be president, and she, in her bizarre wisdom, not wisdom, right? But if she decides to
Israel.
say, you know what, like if we think the IDF is a terrorist organization, you manage to classify it as such, and then you say Israelis who advocated on behalf of the IDF, she would have the authority to do so under our laws, right? She could deport Israelis.
disagree.
She has
Israeli
authority
students
to give
and
them due
revoke their
process.
visas.
Bro. So I would argue that a large I don't know
love
the
this
exact
country.
numbers, but the Trump base is split between anti-interventionist, bye Israel, and pro-Israel. There's a lot of people who are pro-Israel, but when the argument you make about the conservatives, you're going to find a lot of them are more like conservatarian, being like, yeah, I don't give a shit about Israel.
That's his point. He's trying to. He's
They're not going to disagree. They're going to cheer you on.
no.
Okay, so just we're engaging in a hypothetical here.
Here's my point. Like,
wait, please.
you're I guess the fundamental answer is I'm happy with the Khalil deportation. The guy hates our country. He's a guest. He can go home. Like, sorry, you want to go out there and be like,
I think
working
people
for
that
advocating
rioted
for
the
the end of
Capitol
Western
hate this country
civilization?
more than someone criticizing
True.
foreign policy.
Wait.
All the
Okay,
green
wait.
all
I
the
got a
people on
question.
green card that destroyed the Capitol should be deported immediately.
100%.
That is the same
I got a
Capitol.
question.
Yeah, but they're
Hating this
citizens.
country.
That's what
Hating
it
this
means.
country.
Wait,
Some of them are not citizens that
Yeah.
destroyed the Capitol.
I got a question for Will. You said he's a guest in our
Will?
country.
Oh, Will.
Yeah.
Wait. He's a guest in our country. He hates our country, so we could deport him.
Yes.
And that is the State Department has the discretion just to say we revoke your visa. Is there a specific
We'll see.
criteria by which you think they're required, or do you think it's unilateral? No, you're a guest. Get the fuck out.
Under law, I mean, honestly, the Secretary of State, I mean, there's a provision that was used in this case, which is the Secretary of State said, this guy's continued presence in the country is damaging to American foreign policy.
That is
Okay,
very
wait,
vague.
I gotta
AOC's
follow.
president.
I gotta
Just quickly,
follow.
can I quickly say,
I gotta
Sure,
follow.
I understand that it's slippery slope, but I just think that's the law.
President AOC
we need to change the-
in 2029 says, Stephen Crowder, you are a guest in this
100%,
country.
yep.
Get the fuck out.
True.
He's a US
See, he's a citizen, so that doesn't
Viva
apply.
Fry.
Stephen Crowder's on green card.
Viva Fry?
Viva
Fry get it,
I'm
better
saying
start enjoying
hypothetically.
poutine again because he's got to go back. I said he's got to enjoy poutine again because he's got to go back to
All right,
Canada.
so here's a question, right?
We love you, Viva.
Under that framework, Will, just a quick question.
Okay.
The First Amendment, relates to speech. It also relates to the religion clauses. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So, under that discretion, what can the State Department say? Muslims, as a general rule, are damaging, prejudicial to our foreign policy interests, and then we're going to get rid of them.
That's an interesting question because I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's a statutory. I mean, I guess you could make an argument. I haven't really thought about that one.
Question is, it doesn't matter what the INA says if it violates a right, like the free
Right, but I
exercise
think
clause.
the Supreme Court's already resolved this. There's just not a First Amendment defense to removal, right?
wait,
I don't think
of
there
course
is.
There is.
Of
Of
course
course,
there
we
is.
defend
But
their
no,
right
hold
to
on.
speak on foreign
I
issues.
do
No.
really like this question.
Yes.
Because it also strikes at how do we define religion legally? And if we're dealing with terrorist organizations, would we allow them to use religion as a shield for their extremist ideologies, or do we separate that legally? And
Right, because like that. I mean, that also like. I mean, if religion, free practice of religion, then it's like you can't. I mean, maybe supporting a terrorist organization is a core religious belief.
But
like,
just be clear. So you're opening the door. Is it Caleb? Sorry,
Cash.
Cash. Sorry. As Cash said, if you're going to allow this big room, this big hole in the First Amendment for certain speech in favor of Hamas, now you're opening the door for if you're a Christian and you're not a citizen, we can deport you just because you're a Christian.
You invaded the Capitol. You're not a citizen.
I want to say to you what you said. Just to answer your question, you said if President AOC, what you described, most people feel happened already with Biden.
And they're wrong. What do you mean? Wait, explain. They're wrong.
No. It's not wrong that someone felt a way.
Yeah, but okay. I feel that you're all wrong.
Yeah, I feel that
What
you're
are
wrong.
you saying? That's kind of
and I do agree that you feel we're wrong. My point is, you said
You're saying nothing. I don't understand.
you said how would you feel if AOC became president?
It's
and
a way of
designated
asking
group?
the question.
Obviously, you understand. What I'm trying to point out is the hypocrisy here. That of course,
And
if
what I'm
AOC started
pointing
deporting
out
people
is
that are
the
dangerous,
circumstance you described already happened.
no, it
He's
didn't.
asking you
It
to
actually
actually
did. There were Israeli advocates of like who were opposed to the two-bank solution, and Biden denied their visas simply on the grounds.
Whoa,
that they-
Denying
denial
visa
visa
is
is not the
different than
same as
someone already in the
deportation.
country.
It's not even
well,
that.
that is-
That's a lie. You were
we
lying
talk about
purposely.
J6.
I am not lying about
We're
that.
talking about
you're
You-
making
you
a false
literally-
equivalency. You're making a false equivalency. Obviously,
Don't accuse me
denying
of
a
lying
visa
when you
is a
say I'm making
different.
a false
This is-
equivalence.
listen, okay,
It is
but this is
basically
not-
the same. You're intentionally
listen.
misrepresenting a case for political points.
This is not-
I didn't
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
misrepresent.
whoa,
He could
whoa,
be, Cash.
Yes,
He
sure.
could just be wrong,
Listen,
or he could just disagree with
this
them.
is not the
Sure,
point
sure.
that I was
You're not
making.
lying. You're not lying.
I didn't
Let me tell you.
misrepresent.
Let me tell you a story, and I want to hear your reaction to it.
Please.
There was a man and a woman in their mid-40s. Several hours after the event of January 6th, they were in D.C. They live in Maryland. They walked up on the back side of the Capitol where there was no violence and nothing was going on. The doors were open. There were no barricades. They walked up to the building. No police in sight. They walked into the building and looked around taking pictures and walked out after about 3 or 4 minutes. Should they go to prison?
It depends.
On what?
I love that answer. It's the ultimate one.
It depends.
Sure, I'll say intuitively no. Sure.
well, they
what's-
fucking did.
Okay, do you know what's,
Why?
what's great though? Is that they now have due process and they're going to go through. And if a
100%.
court finds them, if
My
a court,
point.
If a court
I
finds
understand.
them,
Based.
Yeah.
My point was what you describe about AOC going after people happened to people who bumbled upon the Capitol not knowing what was
Tim,
going on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If AOC took that case and just deported them instead of getting due process, would you be more mad?
Deported American citizens. I would be mad, yes.
Okay, sorry.
If, I'll give
Okay,
you one.
do you understand what I'm asking?
If
there
Donald
are two
Trump
people on
sends
green
American
cards like
citizens
walking
to CCAT,
out.
I'll be mad.
Well, he says he wants. You agree? He said he wants to do that, right?
And it's wrong to have said it.
Okay, cool.
And it should never happen. And I will
So
always.
do you
speak on it.
condemn him for saying it
I condemn. Well, let me.
multiple times?
Right. Let me say this.
You won't because you're beholden to the
Let me-
administration.
You contempt Omar Garcia for being his
I want
wife.
to try to help people understand things. So let me give you an answer. Piers Morgan asked me the other day, if Joe Biden did the things Trump did, would you praise him for it? And I said, no, probably not. You asked me before the show. I
realize
can't
that's
remember what you said,
unhinged,
something
right?
similar. And I said, the issue is that Donald Trump largely represents my moral worldview, which means I'm tolerant of his failings.
So morals
Joe
mean you
Biden-
could violate the
So you won't
Constitution.
condemn it
That's what you're
because-
saying.
You won't condemn it.
Let me finish
You're
what I'm
saying
saying.
your morals, your subjective morals can
Let me
violate the
finish
Constitution.
what
Sorry,
I'm
yes.
saying.
Sorry,
Joe
Tim.
Biden largely represents things that are antithetical to my worldviews. This is not about whether or not someone could violate the Constitution, because I already told you Trump sending Americans to CCAT is a bad thing, and
But you won't condemn
that.
him for saying it.
Okay, so you condemn him for violating the Constitution. Just
saying
please
it, for saying
say
it.
yes, and I'll let you finish.
You are loading the question.
I'm not loading the question. It's literally he violated the Constitution. Do you support it? Yes or
We are
not?
talking about if he were to do something, not did he do
If
something.
he already did something, we're asking you to
If
condemn
Donald
that.
Trump sent American citizens to CCAT, I would condemn him for
But he
that.
said he wants to do it. So do you condemn that? Do you
I
condemn him
condemn
do you
those
condemn him saying
statements.
that? Okay,
yes,
cool.
100%.
I appreciate that.
I also will tell you this: Donald Trump should be criminally investigated for the killing of Abdurrahman al-Awlaki's little sister in Yemen. He gets no free passes from me, but
Based.
we don't know for sure. What we do know is that Obama admitted to it. We know there's been accusations about Trump. My response is accusations warrant investigation, admission warrant something more
And
substantive.
yet, when it comes to Trump administration officials and their misconduct, like Signalgate, for example, he'll say
That was an inside job. But go ahead.
So what he'll what he'll do is
with all due respect, with respect to your statements on Signalgate,
yeah.
and for time,
Oh yeah. Okay.
I just don't. I understand Signalgate, but I don't think it rises to. I laid two things forward. Trump has been accused of murdering a 7-year-old American girl. Obama admitted that his administration killed a 16-year-old American citizen. Neither of them were criminals. I don't want to muddy that with Signalgate because there's such a substantive.
Wait, Tim, I think you got sidetracked from your point on Piers Morgan, though. Were you going to finish that?
No.
Why do you think that it's
No,
okay if
I-
Joe Biden does terrorist, but
I-
Trump doesn't? Can you defend that to me?
That was my point. My
Just
point
because
is that
Trump is
He
more
did. He said
moral.
because he is.
let me
That's so
explain it.
that's called
No.
moral inconsistency. Sorry,
No,
please,
it's called.
please.
Listen, Donald Trump wants to secure our borders. Our borders should be secure. Donald Trump wants to enforce the law that I think should be enforced properly. Joe Biden was advocating for child sterilization, okay? Child sex change operations, I think are pure evil. Joe Biden took classified documents with him and it's explicitly stated it was because he wanted to write a book that he could sell.
And then he complied with the FBI when they asked him for it. Guess what Trump
And
didn't
his-
do when
and-
he had
and-
documents?
And his ghostwriter destroyed the evidence, worried that it was something wrong. My point is this.
His ghostwriter, not Joe Biden, to clarify.
You and everybody else in this country has a moral worldview.
Yes.
It is the utmost naivete to say, no, I don't, I'm on principle. Not true at all. Not true at all.
Yeah, but what that doesn't respond to. All right, come on, calm down. What you're saying doesn't really respond to what I'm asking. If you have morals, are some of those morals to say not fuck up the economy with tariffs or violate the Constitution?
I'm pro-tariff.
You're
Pro-tariff?
I'm not pro-universal tariffs the way Trump did. I'm pro his selective
So,
tariffs.
just to
Yeah, it's
clarify,
fucking stupid.
I watched that Piers Morgan thing. You said Trump handled the, he asked about like the
plus.
economy doing bad, and then you were like, yeah, if Joe Biden did the exact same thing, I wouldn't defend it. What
So
you're
let
saying
me-
does not
let-
answer
let-
that question at all. You understand that, right?
Let me try and explain it again.
Yes.
The simplest way I can do it without going into like, I don't know, the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, the Suez Canal, the Crimea, and all of the things we can talk about with Mykola Zlochevsky, Biden's actions overseas. We don't need to get into that.
Sure.
I'll just keep it surface level and
Please.
as simple as possible. Biden is for child sex changes. Trump
So
opposes
that
it.
means that if he does
Let me
something,
answer your
yes, Okay,
question.
sorry. I
Now,
love you. I promise.
do you want me to give you a 1-hour essay thesis on everything Joe Biden did that I think was criminal, wrong, and he
Hey,
should go to
Biden,
jail
we
for?
get it.
I'm trying to avoid doing that by saying very simply, what Donald Trump represents morally, as for America, is much more in line with my worldview. I can get into great detail on the Burisma scandal if you want me to, or Tony Bobulinski, or Devin Archer.
We should have
I
that
can,
debate,
I
by
can
the
get
way.
into all
Yeah,
of
we
that
don't
shit.
have that much time because we
No,
got to kick him
hold
off
on.
stage.
He wants to hear the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. Okay, so in 2009, the CIA, we don't want to go there, but I absolutely could. For the sake of time, I will just say this: Trump, in my opinion, universal tariffs doesn't make sense. I am skeptical of it, but I am largely biased in favor of Trump's moral worldview and hopeful that his administration has a plan that will bear out positively. That being said, I'm not entirely sure universal tariffs do. Selective tariffs I'm a big fan of because I believe, being a manufacturer of skateboards, I can tell you directly as an industry how free trade destroyed an industry and destroyed people's lives.
Okay, sure. I guess.
So
you,
Joe
you did,
Biden.
You did respond. And you just
let me-
reaffirmed what you said.
And now Joe Biden, with all the things he's done that I think are bad, were he to enact universal tariffs, I do not trust him because I believe him to be an amoral crackpot. So I would not give him the benefit of the doubt.
So what you're saying is that you cannot acknowledge when something is bad just because the person might have a good intention.
I
You're saying
literally,
because
said the tariffs were done poorly and that I'm skeptical of them.
Okay.
Well,
No,
okay.
but you said you support universal tariffs, but when Biden does it, you don't.
I do not support
No, he
universal
said
tariffs.
selective tariffs. Okay, Cash, get off.
Okay, sorry. Shout out my
Good
friend
job.
Alex and Max.
Thank you for coming up. That was great.
Thank you, Cash. Okay, hold on.
Guys, I love all of you. You just got to read the Constitution better. Much love.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War Podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.